Hi, I'm Nancy, and this is my Detroit. If you recall, on our last tour that we did, we were going to do the next one as a walk up Woodward to Grand Circus Park. Well, since it's the holiday season, and we've got some really cool lights to see, I thought we'd start at Grand Circus Park and walk down Woodward to Campus Martius, where the lights are absolutely wonderful. So, here we are, Grand Circus Park. Grand Circus Park, as I think I mentioned before, is the second best example in the city of what Augustus Woodward wanted when he planned out what the city would look like after the fire of 1805. Grand Circus Park is a semicircle. I am standing on the right side of the semicircle looking north, and it's bisected in the middle by Woodward Avenue, which is to the front of us actually. The original park was supposed to have been a full circle, but the people that owned the land north of Adams, which is right over there, decided that they didn't want to sell the land to the city for a park. They were waiting for a better offer later on because the city was expanding. So Grand Circus Park is a semicircle with Adams at the north, Witherell on this side, and Park on that side. And within the park, there are fountains and there are some statues. So I'd like to go across the street over to the other side of Woodward, and I'll show you a statue and a fountain. I would like to introduce you to Hazen Pingree. Mr. Pingree was mayor of Detroit from 1890 to 1897, and then he was governor of Michigan from 1897 to 1900. Now you may notice that there was kind of an overlap there, and that's because he was elected governor of Michigan while he was still mayor of Detroit. He tried to do both at the same time and figured out that probably wasn't the best idea, and so he resigned as mayor of Detroit and just became governor of Michigan. But Mr. Pingree, as you can see on here, was called the idol of the people. There was a reason for that. He had a desire to help the working poor of Detroit, and he would support them whenever he could. An example of this was during the Panic of 1893, which we would call a depression today. A lot of people didn't have enough to eat. So he took vacant lots in the city and put them aside for gardening, so people could go and plant their gardens and grow their own food. And he also realized that these people probably couldn't afford seed or farming tools to plant their gardens. So he went and sold his prize horse, took the money, and gave it to the people so they could farm and make food for themselves to get them through until the Depression was over. So Hazen was a pretty good guy. Here we are still in Grand Circus Park, but I wanted to kind of walk through all these beautiful lights and show you the Edison Memorial Fountain. So follow me. Now, obviously, there's no water in it right now because it is December, but this fountain was dedicated in 1929, and it commemorated the anniversary of the 50th anniversary, actually, the Golden Jubilee of Edison creating the electric lamp. And Edison was actually here when they dedicated this fountain. We're still in Grand Circus Park, but we are at the entrance to the lower Woodward Avenue area, which is a shopping area. Guarding each side of Woodward Avenue are two beautiful big buildings, and I call them the two Davids because one is for David Broderick and one is for David Whitney. So let's talk about these buildings for a moment. Let's talk about the David Broderick building. It's actually called the Broderick Tower. It was finished in 1928, and it is 33 stories high, so it's a pretty tall building. It was designed by Lewis and Paul Kemper. And Lewis Kemper was Paul's dad, and they designed it together. Lewis Kemper did a couple of other buildings in Detroit. He actually was a Detroit architect. And he designed both the Book Tower and the Book Cadillac, which Detroiters may recognize as the Weston Book Cadillac. But he also designed this building. So the building's architecture is kind of interesting. If you take a look at it, the main shaft of the building is pretty plain. It's called a Chicago-style architecture. But the top 2 floors of it are actually Beaux-Arts, which are modeled after a Parisian architectural school in the late 1800s. And Beaux-Arts is a combination of Romanesque, some other European styles, Gothic. And if you take a look at the top 2 floors, you will see those rounded arches that are so Romanesque in design. So the inside of the building is beautiful. The interior, when you walk into the lobby, it's got a beautiful coved ceiling in it. It's not very large, but it's quite lovely. And the building was very active back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. But then in the 60s and 70s, people started leaving Detroit. And so this building, like so many others in Detroit, went downhill. And there wasn't really anybody in the building when it came into the 1990s. Now in the 1990s, there was one bright spot because Weiland, the painter, the mural painter, came in. He actually is a citizen of Detroit. He was born in the Detroit area. He came in here and he painted his whale mural on the side of that building, right on the other side of it. And that's what most Detroiters will recognize about this building, is that mural. In 2012, some developers came in and they basically rehabbed the building. So today you have condominiums and apartments in that beautiful building. Interesting inside to that building, because I've been in one of those apartments, they're on 2 different floors. So you would have your living area on one floor and your bedroom on the other floor. And there's a winding staircase that takes you up to that upper floor. And I mean, you can either risk your life on that little staircase, or you can go outside, catch the elevator up to the next floor, and go inside on that one. So it's a beautiful building, and if you're on the right side of it, you can watch a Tiger game because the Comerica Park is right to the side. The other David is the David Whitney building. This building was completed in 1915, so it's a little older than the one across the street, and it was designed by Daniel Burnham. Now, Daniel Burnham actually was known more for his structures in Chicago. If you think about it, he designed Union Station, the Marshall Field store on State Street, and the Buckingham Fountain in Grant Park. But he also designed some buildings here in Detroit, so one of them being the Dime building, which is now the Chrysler building, and also the Ford building just around the corner. And the building was built, interestingly enough, on land that David Whitney had purchased himself. And David Whitney was the lumber baron that basically put a lot of things into Detroit. And he purchased this land on this exact corner in the late 1800s because he saw that Detroit was expanding and he wanted to buy that land for an investment. And so he put up a 5-story building on this exact spot, and it was there until his death. And after his death, his son decided to build this structure. The structure in style is Italian Renaissance. It's kind of hard to tell that by looking at it because honestly, the outside of this building has been redone a few times. But that is the original plan for this building. If you go inside it, there is a 4-story atrium with a beautiful light at the top of it. It's really quite a pretty building. And it was used for the most part by dentists, doctors, and lawyer offices after it was put up. A lot of people can still remember coming down here to get a filling in their teeth. And there was stores on the bottom of it. And unfortunately, like the buildings in Detroit I talked about before, it went downhill after a while. Luckily, in 2013, it was rehabbed, and today the Aloft Hotel is inside this building, plus condominiums and apartments. So we're here at the entrance of the David Whitney building. We're going to go in the lobby. Let's go take a look. Ooh, warmer. It's much warmer in here. We are in the lobby of the Aloft Hotel, which is in the David Whitney building. And Phil has taken some shots of the inside. One thing I want you to notice is the ceiling above this 4-story lobby. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's like there's light outside. Looks very pretty. So we're going to start our walk down Woodward now. You'll see some of the lights and some of the prettiness, and you can just follow us as we walk down. And we will be looking at the Shinola Hotel, Parker's Alley, and a couple other things that I think might be of interest to you. We're going to take our walk down Woodward now. For the next 4 blocks, we are going to be seeing what used to be Merchants Row in Detroit. And that was because this was where you would go shopping on a Saturday. In the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s even, people would come down here to do their shopping. And there were many department stores and specialty stores. Hudson's, Kresge's, Winkleman's, Sanders, where you could get yourself a good hot fudge sundae, and Crowley's were all some of the stores that were down in this area. I always remember Crowley's because they had a wooden escalator, skinny little wooden escalators. And when my mom brought me down here as a child, that was one of the things that I remembered about Merchants Row. So let's go ahead and take a walk. Welcome to Parker's Alley. Parker's Alley is located right behind the Shinola Hotel, and as a matter of fact, it was an alley that was refurbished by Shinola and Bedrock. It currently contains restaurants and retail stores, and a lot of the retail stores are women-owned, which is really cool. The alley was named for a man named Thomas Parker, who was an African-American who was one of the first African-American owners of land in Detroit after 1805. And this alley is actually on the piece of land that he owned. So make sure you come down here sometime. You can get a bite to eat, and you can go shopping at the great stores. We are here in front of the Shinola Hotel, which is one of the more recent hotels in Detroit, having been finished in 2019. And it takes up 5 old historic buildings, one of which is the Singer Building, but the other one was the TV Rail Building, which has this beautiful red tile, and it was designed by Wirt Rowland. And yes, this is the Shinola when you think of bikes and watches. This is the company that you are thinking of, and this is their hotel. And if you want to go buy a watch, you can just go down there to their store and pick one up. Behind me used to be Hudson's department store. This iconic department store was built in 1911, and they kept adding on to it for 30 years until it was 33 stories high with about 3 sub-basements. This was the place to come during any time of the year to go shopping. Beautiful, beautiful building. And I remember coming down here when I was a child, and we would go up to the 12th floor, which is where Santa Claus was, to see all the beautiful dolls and things that were on the way, and you went up in your own private elevator to see Santa. And you'd come here for different things. I mean, at the 4th of July, they had one of the largest flags in the United States draped over the building, and the Thanksgiving parade stopped right here where Santa received the key to the city. But then Hudson's was sold to Marshall Field's, which was then sold to Macy's, and soon, with the people leaving the city, there was no more need for a Hudson's downtown. And in 1998, it was imploded. And this was basically just a vacant lot for years and years until about last year when they started to work on it again. And now it's a huge tower is going to be built along with mixed-use buildings that will house stores, apartments, and a few restaurants. Well, here we are at Campus Martius. What a beautiful place this time of year. As you can see, the skating rink in the back and the beautiful Christmas tree. Come on down here and make sure that you get to see this before the season is out. Thanks for coming with me. I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We'll see you next time.